The most diabolical financial players in the UK aren't wearing suits in the city, nor are they calling up grannies to scam them out of their pensions. Nope. The UK's worst dodgy dealers are actually plying their trade right there on the high street. We all know the names: Ladbrokes, Paddy Power, William Hill. Their logos are on seemingly every bus, every football shirt, and practically every corner of the digital world. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the UK's £15.6 billion gambling machine. It's an operation that, as we'll see, relies on psychological manipulation, a predatory business model, and a high-stakes political war where the public often pays the price. To understand how this machine truly works, you only need to understand that the top 20 or so % of gamblers in the UK account for 90% of the gambling firm's revenues. Basically, the entire colossal empire survives because of a fraction of people who are likely struggling with a gambling addiction. These companies are financially dependent on the most desperate people in Britain. And that's not an unfortunate accident, it's a core principle of their business plan. This business plan requires a specific strategy, maximum speed, and maximum volume. Essentially, you want to make it as simple as possible for people to place bets and make sure they place a hell of a lot of them. That's why each gambling firm has their own brightly colored app designed to make betting as effortless and addictive as possible. Each time the weekend Premier League games come around, they can send a notification direct to millions of gamblers' phones around the country. But for years, the undisputed champion of this approach was the fixed odds betting terminal. Everyone knew their brutal nickname, the crack cocaine of gambling. They were high-speed digital terminals placed directly inside betting shops on high streets around the country, especially in deprived areas where there were thousands of addicts ready to blow their entire weekly wage on a few £100 virtual roulette spins. As NHS clinician Dr. Matt Gaskell noted, these machines were intentionally designed for prolonged play and repeated dopamine rushes, giving people very little time to stop and reflect. The result? A lot of ruined lives. The public backlash was immense, and the government finally intervened, slashing the maximum bet on these terminals from £100 to just £2. On paper, this should have been a fatal blow. This reform was designed to surgically remove the high-speed, high-loss element, rendering the machines unprofitable and finally ending the crisis. But it wasn't. The corporations simply adapted. The law had a critical, unforeseen consequence. It made the bookies' newly neutered £2 machines identical in stake to the machines already operating in the adult gaming centers. Also called AGCs, these are brightly lit 24-hour arcades that are spreading like wildfire across the UK. But they're not just expanding anywhere. In a data-driven and incredibly heartless strategy, AGCs are disproportionately expanding in the country's most financially deprived areas. Places already battered by austerity and unemployment, where gambling can often be viewed as a ticket out of debt. That desperate hope creates the high-volume, high-risk player the industry's model relies on. They're literally mapping poverty and establishing their operations to match. Local councils try desperately to resist these new slot shops, but find themselves absolutely outgunned. Gambling giants, backed by multi-billion-pound dynasties and very expensive lawyers, exploit the outdated 2005 Gambling Act that essentially forces councils to aim to permit gambling in their area. These 24-hour centers are meticulously designed for prolonged play. Their only goal is to keep your eyes fixed on the screen, and they will fuel you indefinitely to stay there. We're talking free coffee, complimentary chocolate, Haribo sweets, and even fresh pizza from compact ovens. They're injecting sugar and caffeine directly into the addiction loop. To keep the lights on and the regulators at bay, the industry has to put on a show of responsibility. That's why you see the slogans everywhere like, "When the fun stops, stop." But these slogans are a masterful piece of blame shifting. They make you believe that if you lose everything, it's a personal failure. This neatly sidesteps the core issue. The product itself is designed to be as addictive as possible, chemically hijacking your brain's reward system. Addiction experts have pointed out this responsible gaming framework, funded by the industry itself, is like asking Big Tobacco to run quit smoking campaigns. Can you really trust them to act responsibly when their entire business model thrives whenever the public fails? If the industry were truly serious about safety, its core safeguards would actually function. but they don't. Take the self-exclusion scheme. This is a person's last resort, a desperate plea for help where an addict formally requests to be banned from all local and online gambling venues. In theory, this registration creates a digital wall, flagging their identity to all operators. A BBC investigation, however, uncovered the grim reality. A reporter who signed up for self-exclusion was able to walk into 13 out of 14 adult gaming centers and continue playing. Staff either ignored him or, in some cases, offered him assistance and free snacks right at the terminal. The corruption runs deeper. Former employees have admitted the companies often conceal criminal damage caused by players who play to extinction. That's the industry's own chilling term for losing all your money. Smashed machines and violent outbursts could lead to a denial of new licenses, so they keep their mouths shut about it. This strategic concealment allows them to stand in front of licensing committees and claim their sites are trouble-free, proving they are willing to cover up the most violent consequences of their own product, all just to secure the next license. The cost here isn't measured in money, it's measured in ruined families, lost homes, and severe mental health crisis. As parliamentary debates have highlighted, problem gambling is directly linked to a rise in robberies, domestic abuse, and neglect. As one addiction clinician put it, the country's support systems are able to pick a few gamblers out of the river, while the industry is throwing in thousands further upstream. The fun stopped long ago. So how exactly have they managed to fine-tune these diabolical behavior models so meticulously? Well, a big part of it is down to the apps. Every single click, swipe, and bet you make is recorded, analyzed, and weaponized. The firms build incredibly intricate behavioral profiles to know when you log in, what time you log off, how much you spend, and what odds you chase. They know that if you're up betting on Ecuadorian youth basketball at 3 a.m., that's probably a key indicator of addiction. They're building a profile of your vulnerability, and when you start to lose big, you might get a free bet promotion to bait you into keeping up the game just long enough for the next loss. Basically, they're using the same attention-maximizing tactics as social media giants, but the stakes are infinitely higher. A 2021 survey estimated 1.4 million adults in the UK are living with a gambling addiction. Parliamentary debates confirm that suicide rates among problem gamblers are significantly higher than the general population. At this point, it's basically a public health crisis. This devastation is finally forcing a political fight, with some politicians pushing back. They're focusing on the massive financial imbalances, meaning the fact that the £15.6 billion industry pays only about £2.5 billion in tax. Reformers argue that £3.2 billion could be generated by raising duty rates on gambling. As a result, the owner of William Hill, one of the UK's most famous brands, issued a public threat in October 2025, warning they could shut down up to 200 betting shops if the Chancellor raises the taxes. The industry's main counter-argument is that high taxes will simply drive more customers to the black market. It's a familiar talking point, but one that many politicians and reformers call scaremongering. As MPs put it in Westminster, the industry's profits are heavily dependent on harmful losses. So the idea you can boost operator profits without worsening gambling harm simply doesn't stack up. But the political landscape is shifting. The question is whether the government is finally ready to stand up to an industry that has been operating with almost zero restriction. The UK is the global test case. It's a perfect storm with a liberalized market, sophisticated technology, and a calculated business model aimed at the vulnerable. The result is a public health crisis masquerading as a high street hobby. The arcades are multiplying. The apps are firing non-stop. The gambling giants are fighting tooth and nail against any law that threatens their ultimate business model. This entire system is built on a simple, horrifying premise. The more someone loses, the more valuable they become to the company. The game is rigged. The house is dependent on you losing. And that is the undeniable, terrifying truth behind gambling in the UK. But what do you reckon? What would it take to finally break the power of the gambling machine? Do you think the UK can ever truly regulate an industry that is fundamentally built on addiction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this investigation opened your eyes, give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, and ring that bell to stay updated. Cheers for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.